This week has been the IAA in Munich, Germany, and as I've already promised, this means that we're going to select some of the key cars that have grabbed our attention and in some cases gotten us super excited. And with today being World EV Day, happy World EV Day, I thought we'd focus on a car that we saw at IAA, which comes from a brand that we've long thought embodied a lot of what's been missing from the electric vehicle world. A brand that produces small, fun, funky cars that are perfect for urbanites who don't need a long-distance car all that often, and for whom affordability and manoeuvrability come front and centre. I am, of course, talking about the Smart Car brand, Daimler's urban-focused marque that's designed primarily for younger buyers, engenders fierce brand loyalty among its customers, and is frankly unlike any other brand out there. Except at IAA this week, Smart Car did something unspeakable. It bowed to the pressure of the mainstream auto market and unveiled an electric concept that feels antithetical to what came before. A 4-seat SUV that it says will preview a 5-seat production version in the future. I'm not kidding, it put down its free spirit, exchanged its bright, colourful spectacles for contact lenses, and then gave the kid at the back of the lunch line a wedgie to prove how hard and tough it was. As I've detailed before on this channel, I have quite a soft spot for the humble Smart Car. Smart originated in the early 1980s when SMH, the company behind the Swatch brand of watches, explored the idea of making a new city car using the same design strategies and personalisation options that made the Swatch watch the fashion accessory of choice for more than a decade. And for our younger viewers, Swatch watches were a big deal in the 1980s. I mean, we weren't wealthy enough for me to own one, I just had my Casio Digital, but they were big. I mean, like, seriously big. If I was a cool kid back in 1984, I wasn't, I would have had a Swatch watch. Ye gods, 1984. I feel old. And no, in case you're curious, SMH doesn't mean what you think it means, at least it didn't back then, although SMH does quite accurately describe my reaction to this new concept car. Let's look at some history. Just like the Swatch watch, the idea for the Swatchmobile would challenge traditional automotive brands, offering swappable body panels that would allow customers to make their mark on their car. The car would be powered by a hybrid drivetrain. Yeah, that's right. Long before Toyota had its Prius hybrid or Honda had its Insight, a fashion watch company out of Switzerland wanted to make a small, funky, fuel-efficient city car that would have wiped the floor with the competition. While we now know that that concept, which soon became known as the Smart Car, would eventually find a home at Mercedes-Benz, there was indeed a short period of time in the early 1990s when Volkswagen expressed interest in helping SMH bring that vehicle to market. But it would take nearly another decade before the SmartForTwo, the name ultimately given to the Swatchmobile-derived design, made its production debut. The year was 1998. And, like the fabled Marmite of my home country, it was very much a love-it-or-loathe-it car. The tiny SmartForTwo quickly became a common sight in major metropolitan areas around Europe, thanks to its tiny form factor and ability to not only park in the smallest of parking spaces, but legally park perpendicular to the curb. And in a choice of hard roof or drop top, it really was as fun to drive as it looked. And by fun, I mean it was so small that you could bomb around roundabouts flat out, squealing tyres as you went. As long as you had the Tiptronic semi-automatic gearbox, because the fully automatic one was really bad. And let's be clear, the tiny sub-1 litre gasoline engine of the original Smart Car, complete with that said automatic gearbox, wasn't going to get anyone excited. I mean, asking that car to change gears required a written approval in triplicate before the drivetrain actually responded. But it was fun in the same way that riding in a shopping cart when you were 3 was fun. You could chuck it around city backstreets, nipping in and out of traffic, and with its rear-wheel drivetrain, it was surprisingly go-kart-like. And come on, I mean, how many cars do you know that were so small that you could touch windows in all 4 directions from the driver's seat? Thanks to its diminutive size, it was also ridiculously fuel efficient. with the petrol version managing fuel economy rivaling Toyota's brand new first-generation Prius. If you had no need for a 4-door, 5-seat family car, the smart car was cheap and cheerful motoring, although not the cheapest car on the market. And for a limited while, some fun and funky variants existed, including the slightly larger but equally fun Smart Roadster and the totally bonkers Smart Crossblade, a vehicle that is still sought by collectors around the world and which sells for incredibly high prices even today. I owned a SmartForTwo TDI. Yeah, I know, it was a 65 mile per gallon diesel Smart. It was a car that we ironically called Gus the Gas Guzzler because alongside our various electric runabouts it was, and I'm not telling a lie, our long-distance car in the days before rapid charging was a thing for EVs. At the heart of the 2008 financial crisis, it was the car that my wife traded in her Toyota Prius for. Basically, the Prius was simply costing too much every month when we had some financial challenges, and paying the 99 quid a month 2-year lease for Gus fit the bill of being a modern, good-looking car that my wife could drive to client sites without looking silly or breaking the bank. Although, I won't lie, fitting myself, my wife, our luggage and our 2 dogs at the time in it for a family road trip was interesting. Probably questionably legal based on how much stuff we managed to squeeze behind the seats. That said, its association with the Mercedes-Benz family did mean that servicing costs weren't always that affordable. In fact, I seem to recall service visits were more expensive than for our Toyota Prius, but hey, I got to sit in the nice customer service area and drink very fancy coffees served up by a very pleasant chap in a white shirt, pressed trousers and +4s. It was one of the cheapest new cars you could buy, and when Smart finally added an electric variant to the mix, the unfortunately named SmartForTwo ED, it did help get some people excited about going all electric. And yes, no smirks please, that phrase also didn't mean what you thought it meant in the UK 10 years ago. My goodness. The original SmartForTwo ED, a prototype I drove for the Nikki Drives precursor to this very channel back in 2009, was terrible. It had a limited top speed, an underpowered drivetrain, and gave me range anxiety faster than trying to drive across California in a Toyota Mirai. The next SmartForTwo prototype I drove was a Tesla-engineered variant that was exactly the opposite. It was so well endowed in the drivetrain and battery department that legend has it the thing was purposely restricted. Although, also as a matter of urban legend, Tesla had one at its headquarters back when it was still making the original Roadster. Instead of making your buttocks clench in fear with running out of charge or being mowed down by a big rig, it made you question that extra helping of hash browns you had for breakfast. But the production Smarts, they were pretty good. Granted, the electric SmartForTwo was more expensive than the internal combustion engine variants, but it was quicker, and it handled far better too, thanks to the lower centre of gravity from that low-down battery pack. And while the SmartForTwo was failing to attract buyers outside of major cities in North America, the smart car was still selling strongly in Europe. The electric variant was popular too, partly because in Europe it came with an optional 3-phase onboard charger that could top off the batteries in just about an hour or so. It also happened to be one of the very first cars I reviewed for this channel, so I'll shove a link in the description so you can laugh at a much slimmer, less grumpy and far more optimistic Nikki giving you the lowdown on a SmartForTwo electric from 2012. Over its 20-year life, the smart car, I'm talking the original 2-seat idea, has morphed and changed with the times. It's gotten larger, and the most recent variant, developed in collaboration between Daimler and Renault on a joint platform called Edison, that also underpinned the Renault Twingo, has been offered in both 2- and 4-seat variants. In Europe, where the smart car brand is still sold, it pulled out of the US unceremoniously in 2019, it has become all electric, pushing up the car's price and making it less appealing to buyers. But in cities where space trumps everything else, it is still selling. Yet, Whatever my fondness for the smart car as it once was, the concept number one, as debuted in Munich on the Smart stand, shows that the brand has an identity crisis, and whatever made the brand fun, funky and different could be about to be replaced with the same thing that every other automaker is churning out: a crossover SUV. Smart says that the car has ambient lighting from LEDs throughout the cabin and a newly developed user interface concept with artificial intelligence integrated into it. It promises level 2 semi-autonomous driving capabilities and a huge cavernous interior, compared to its 11 feet external length. It's got 4 individual fully adjustable seats. The production version will have 5. And there's a full-length glass roof, and the same kind of floating dash that we've seen from other concept cars in the past. 75% of all of the computer hardware on board, we're promised, can get new software updates thanks to over-the-air connectivity, and, says Smart, the car will intelligently adjust to the driver's preferences thanks to a virtual companion at the heart of its user interface. But being a concept car, none of the things we look for in a car are mentioned. There's no mention of range or performance or indeed power at the wheels. And while the simulated dashboard gets bonus points for having a cute little fox on it, it's clearly very much still a concept, which is why I think I'm being so vocal right now. Just like the Mini brand, which has been gently diluted during its time under the BMW umbrella, transitioning from a tiny city runabout with great curves to a not quite an SUV four-door wagon, see also Fiat's 500L crossover, Smart wants in on the action that the automotive industry believes is the key to sales success. Don't get me wrong, SUVs are the quickest growing segment out there. Car buyers in every market around the world are flocking to them because of their perceived safety benefits, large cavernous interiors, and higher up driving position. And automakers are doing everything they possibly can to make cars that really aren't SUVs into SUVs and into crossover SUVs. The Ford Mustang Mach-E is a perfect example of this. It's called an SUV, but it's really not. It's a large hatchback with biggish wheels and a bit of a personality crisis. It's a very capable and fun car to drive. I mean, disclaimer, my wife and I have one on order. But it's certainly not really an SUV, nor a crossover. But hang on, maybe I am being just a tad too harsh. We all know the challenges of making electric vehicles with small form factors. It's the reason why the current SmartForTwo has such a teeny tiny whiny range, even if it does have rapid charging these days. But as I and the rest of the team have said so many times, if we really want electric vehicles to replace internal combustion engine ones, we need a variety of choices and price points and styles. Stylistically, the Smart concept number one looks like a squished down Mercedes-Benz at the rear and at the front. Those angry eyes formed by the very narrow headlights and side-to-side accent bar are far from the fun, cute, please don't take this seriously design of Smarts of old. Smart cars get mean. Is that really what people want? With seating for 4, 5 in the production version, it will undoubtedly sell to some city types who want a longer-legged, style-before-all car. But to my mind, this concept is more mini-me Mercedes than it is anything else, and that brings me to ask the question, is this the car that Mercedes-Benz doesn't want to make with a Mercedes badge? The one that it believes will compete against similarly small models from Volkswagen and BMW? At the end of the day, the smart car brand wasn't selling in North America, which is why it was cancelled here. But in Europe, there's still demand for small, funky, fun electric cars. It's one reason why the Volkswagen e-Up has sold so well in Germany this year, despite technically no longer being available to buy if you don't already have a reservation. And while China and North America, both obsessed with SUVs, are certainly driving forces behind the auto industry's continuous transition to crossovers, I can't help but think the original concept of a smart car is now well and truly lost, when it's well and truly needed. As a brand, let's be honest, it was never really all that affordable, especially not in its EV form. But instead of trying to find a unique and innovative way to challenge that, keeping its city runabout stance and small form footprint, Smart has done something I personally think isn't so smart. Worse still, I think the Smart brand is now removing its USP, the thing that made it stand out from the competition, and is throwing itself into a marketplace where it will cross-shop against cars like the aforementioned Mini Cooper SE, the excellent next-generation Fiat 500e, and perhaps the Renault Zoe. And yeah, I know all of those cars are considerably larger than the Smart Concept 1, but I'm also going to stick my neck out and suggest that once you've lost the benefits of a car that's under 9 feet long, you're probably going to look at options that will likely be more affordable, more capable, and aren't a crossover. It's like going from a tiny house to a 1,500 square foot home because you wanted a full-size dishwasher. I know that I've vented in Smart's direction and by association Mercedes-Benz's too, but Smart, to be fair, isn't the only brand doing this. It is becoming a trend that I, for one, am pretty eager to see the back of. Sure, those in large countries with hours upon hours of nothing in between major cities may need larger, more capable, longer-legged electric cars, but we need someone somewhere to focus on making electric cars more efficient, more diverse, and most importantly, more affordable for all. And I, for one, mourn for what is obviously becoming a death of tiny, fun EVs. A couple of years ago, when it was announced Smart was becoming all electric, I was very excited and cheered the news and said that the brand was going in the direction it always should have been. But this week's concept reveal, it feels like Smart has given up trying to be itself and just wants to fit in. I just hope it doesn't turn into one of those mean, nasty girls. That's it for today. If you liked the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to this channel and our 2 other channels. It's Transport Evolved Take 2 and Transport Evolved Shorts. We know that while a fair few of you are already subscribed, many more aren't, so please make sure that you're subscribed and hit the bell as well to help us out. Let us know below what you thought of the video, and if you're someone who doesn't like the YouTube comment section, I don't, then why not head to Discord? It's free and we'll leave the link below. Thanks on behalf of the entire TE crew go out to the folks on my right for being our $15 to $49 a month Patreon supporters. Special thanks to our $50 a month patrons. That's David Giannacoula, Andrew Martin, Guido Drahoa, Brophy Wolf, Tazla in the Gong, Paul Conway, Sean Ueda, Gordon C, Regine Fellows, Anonymous Freak, Jim Burness, Carl Hodgson, Anthony Coates, Laura Sanborn, Rory Litwin and Denny Hyde. And our deepest gratitude to our $100 a month Patreon supporters, John Lyons, Marcel Ward, Reggie Watts, JP Fagerback, Will Graylin, Ellery Hellersley and Ian. If you'd like to join the ranks of wonderful supporters, you'll find links below to Patreon, Bitcoin and Ko-fi, and of course, you can also buy your very own TE swag at our Redbubble store. Thanks for joining me, and as always, keep evolving!